Hi everybody, it's Wednesday and you know what that means. It's Prosperident Webinar Day. I am here with my two wonderful co-hosts, Amber Weber and Wendy Askins, the Texas Tornadoes. Great to be back with you guys for another week. And let's get things started. Because hopefully everybody's getting back to work soon, we're going to put the pause on our webinar series after next week. Next week, we're going to do what we call the grand finale, and we will love the title. Reconcile or Reckless, your choice. So that's going to be next week. As always, at the end of today, we send a final email around the time we're going to finish at about 4:30 Eastern time, and there will be a button there to register for next week. So we're gonna talk about the reconciliation internal audit kind of process, and I know it sounds drier than a popcorn fart, but we'll try to make it fun. Hi there and welcome to my office. We're all set up for the webinar that's about to start. We're really excited about today because we're going to do some things that we've never done before. We call it peeling back the curtain, and let me start by doing just that. The video said it. Today we're going to do some things that we haven't done before, and we're going to put some Prosperident team members on camera who have never been there before. That certainly has its funny moments. Here's a little bit of basic stuff about us that most of you probably know. We were started in 1989, so over 30 years ago by accident. We have a total of about 25 people who are all fascinated by things that most people don't think are that interesting. 30% of us used to pull teeth, which is ironic because sometimes getting the information that we need to do our work is like pulling teeth. And you can see we have some functional areas. We have a general investigations group. We have people who deal with orthodontists headed by our very own Wendy Askins. We have special investigations, and their motto is we look at things that no sane person would get involved with. And a word that always makes people outside of dentistry giggle when we use it, prophylactics, and that's in our case something called office protection system, and that's part of what Amber Weber's involved with. The lady on the screen is one of our investigators, and her name is Mindy Salzman. Mindy is a really nice grandmotherly kind of person, but her picture is just intimidating as hell. And my theory is we don't have to investigate. We just have to show a suspect that picture and they'll start singing like a canary. So thank you, Mindy, for scaring me when I look at you. So the idea today was to tell you a little bit more about us, and we've all been hanging out for the last month. And we've gotten lots of questions about us. So we got in our virtual Zoom vehicle, and Wendy and Amber and I, you know, you can see us traveling around in days when we were actually allowed to travel. Wendy and Amber and I decided that we would bring you a bit about the company. So we're going to take you inside, and we're going to show you lots of things. And like that little intro video said, we're going to pull back the curtain.
So we want to let everybody get to know us better. We're really a diverse team of dental professionals. All of us have some type of dental background experience, and we are located all over Canada and the United States. So the purpose of today is we wanted you guys to individually know that we are all over the world and we understand different diverse populations. My first reporting task, I got to meet one of our very courageous clients, Dr. Dominique Backus. Her story really inspired me and made me realize how strong of an individual dentists are when they are able to overcome what happened to her.
Whoops. Sorry about that.
was someone who was the grandmother type, who did everything for me in the office, and would have never thought in a million years that she would have done that. One is when we were transferring from CareStream or OrthoTrack to TOPS, we had a trainer come in, and my financial coordinator, who was the embezzler, did not have the employer policies in place. And she acted very strange because I had asked her if she had done all of her legwork for this conversion, and she said yes, and then she just acted very confused. And she had always been on top of things, and so I started kind of questioning what she was doing, if she wasn't doing things right. And the trainer raised some suspicions as well because she didn't understand why things hadn't been done. My treatment coordinator took a very large cash payment, and then Susie backed it out of the ledger. Honestly, I felt devastated. I felt hurt. I played the why me victim game. I really, honestly, questioned my judgment in people. I guess I did because I felt like I was on top of things, and this made me realize that I really wasn't. So I definitely limit my employees to what they can access, and I'm in control of the cash box. And this may or may not be right, but when I hire someone, I tell them that I did have a person in my office who embezzled and that I prosecuted them. And if they want to embezzle, that this is not the place they want to be employed. I also set up security features on my alarm so that I get called when someone goes in after hours. When this happened, all the thoughts that were running through my mind: how do I file a police report? Am I going to get my money back? Where do I start? And I remember calling David Harris, and he was in the car driving. It was a Friday night, and he talked with me for 3 hours. And by the end of that conversation, I felt like I had someone who had my back, and he did. And I don't think that I could have gotten through this by myself. I discovered, and through Prosperident, made me realize that I could actually stop this woman from hurting someone else's business. And I feel really good about that.
So there was two interesting things when I spoke with her that really set in with me. Number one, the person who stole from her is pictured on right here on the screen. So she said, I would have never thought in a million years when I saw her that she would have taken anything from me. And then number two, she said, you know, I've learned not to be ashamed of what happened to me. So that was the key thing that I think she wanted people to know, is it can happen, and don't be ashamed.
I'll mention a couple of things. Thank you, Amber. First of all, the interviews that were done with clients, and we're going to show you a couple more today, were much longer, and we've cut it down to make it fit into this space. If you want to see the entire interviews, which are great, they're on our website now, and the end of session email that we will send today will have a link, and you can click on that link, and it'll take you to the full videos. And I'd say some of them are definitely worth watching. I mean, they're typically about 10 or 15 minutes, but we've obviously snipped it down a little bit just to make it fit here. And secondly, I'll echo what Amber said about the courage. I mean, we asked some of our clients to come forward and tell you a little bit about their experience because we thought it would be valuable to you. And let's just understand what a big request that was and how grateful we are that they were prepared to do that for you.
Let me introduce you to my friend Pat Little, Dr. Pat Little. Pat is a rock, number one. We came to Prosperident at approximately the same time, and he is a prolific investigator and he's a gifted speaker, and you can catch Pat speaking at some of the major dental meetings around the United States. So Pat is from Tennessee, and here he is talking about what he thinks he does.
Greetings. I'm Pat Little, and I'm a senior fraud examiner with Prosperident. I'm also a dentist. I practiced 14 years before a disability ended my private practice days. So I went back to college, got an accounting degree, and in 2012, through a mutual friend, I was introduced to David Harris of Prosperident. I've been associated with the company ever since, and I really enjoy what I do. Now, you may be asking yourself, just what is it that a fraud examiner does? Well, it depends on who you ask. If you ask me, this is what I think I do. I'm a legend in my own mind. However, this is what I really do. I work from a home office, and I cannot tell you how important that is. It's vital that if you feel you're the victim of embezzlement, your employee should never know that an investigation is ongoing. Many embezzlers are under an enormous amount of stress because they're wondering, is today the day the doctor catches me? If you have an employee who feels that you're now suspicious, the tendency is going to be to destroy evidence, whether that's a computer issue, hard drives mysteriously crashing, patient charts disappearing. That's a destructive event for your practice. The safest method to conduct an embezzlement examination is by remote means. First off, this doesn't disrupt the normal daily activities of your practice. But most importantly, no one on your team knows what is going on. You are the only one that we communicate with. Also, what if embezzlement isn't occurring? Do you want a team member to find out that you were suspicious and investigated them? That could break the bonds of trust forever. This is why, in our opinion, the best course of action to conduct an examination is for nobody to know. If embezzlement is found, the employee doesn't know until you call him or her into your office and terminate their employment. Otherwise, nobody knows, and now you have the peace of mind of knowing that either everything was okay, or at least now you know what's happening so that you can put it behind you. This is why when it comes to investigations, I don't mind being stuck in a home office. I would love to meet you sometime, but under different circumstances.
You know what amazes me about that? He didn't stumble once. There's no way I could do that.
Oh, he's gifted with words.
He is incredible. And then we have our friend Haley. Haley is, we call her the Maven of Documents. She's the person who works with a new client on getting in the things that we need from them in order to do our work. And it'll be a little obvious from the video, but this is probably like the first time she's ever been on camera. So it's, you know, it's a little stiff. The thing I'll mention about Haley though is that we have all of our pictures on online on Google, and Haley gets more views from people than the rest of us combined. And you can see where the red arrow is, and at that point she had 5,000 views. At the same time, I had about 124. So I don't know exactly what the magnetism is, but man, they love her on the internet. Anyway, let's hear from Haley.
What does my job with Prosperident entail? Well, I'm an intermediate analyst, and this means that I am one of the very first points of contact for our clients. My job helps them gather all of the documents that are needed for their examinations and to wrap all of that information up in a pretty red bow for our examiners. I like to think that when our clients move forward in our process, they do so knowing that we are going to take great care of them. My passion is helping people, so I just knew that I had to be a part of it. So I reached out to our COO, Wendy Job, and the rest is history. What do I like about working at Prosperident? Well, I love the atmosphere. We truly are a family, and the work that we do gives our clients peace of mind and the tools that they need to help them in the future. In addition to working directly with our clients, I also do some analysis for our examiners. I never pass up a chance to work with our examiners as they are a wealth of knowledge, and each and every one of them are at the forefront of their fields.
This is my friend Sonia Hudson. Now, Sonia also started at Prosperident roughly around the same time that I did. And Sonia's mind is like a file cabinet of details. She is so detail-oriented, and I really admire that about her. As a matter of fact, this young woman that you see on your screen right here is one of the suspects that Sonia helped to catch and helped to throw her out of the dental industry. One thing that I really don't like about Sonia is that she always gets me in trouble every time we're together. We were at the Prosperident Summit in Halifax where our group all gets together, and Sonia and Debbie Long, who you'll meet in just a bit, and I all had a lively experience that involved the police. So although Sonia seems very detail oriented and very conservative, yeah, she also has a knack for getting you in trouble too.
For me, I would have to say it's thinking like a fraudster, thinking of the different methodologies and the different ways people can hide whatever inappropriate activities and behaviors they're doing in the office or in the software. Is that when I uncover fraud, of how many times it's from staff that have worked for the office for long lengths of time. So I think it's really important that you take action when there's any suspicions of frauds. And unfortunately, and more times than not, if your spidey senses have gone off, likely there's cause for that.
Well, I'd like everyone to meet our Dentrix diva. Christine Geary is newer to our team. She is from California. She has years of dental experience, and she was also a experienced software trainer in Dentrix. So she's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the ins and outs of a dental office. Right now, she is currently completing her degree in forensic accounting, and so she has a true passion for the business side of dentistry while knowing how software works.
I think it's probably got to be the scale of the issue and the lengths to which an embezzler will go to achieve what they are looking for. The suspect was still employed and going through that process and anticipating what the doctor was going to need from us, and just through the whole termination process. It was just fascinating. And everything we predicted that the suspect would do, she sure enough did. Oh, there's my assistant investigators. I've got 4 assistant investigators here. Thanks, babe.
Now I'm going to have the privilege of introducing you to one of the most important people at Prosperident, and her name is Wendy Job. Just to confuse everybody, we have 2 Wendys here. Wendy Askins, my co-host, and Wendy Job, who's our Chief Operating Officer. And I've known Wendy for probably 20 maybe even 25 years. Her mom was a longtime office manager around here, and Wendy started down that route and eventually joined us. And she is so vital to what we do. So we're going to hear a little bit from her. And if you have questions or comments or anything like that, please use the chat box that's available. We may have a little bit of time left at the end for those questions and comments, and we'll get to as many then as we can. We're probably not going to stop and try and address them now, just because it tends to mess up our video. Anyway, let's hear from our very highly regarded colleague, Wendy. Oops.
Well, I am the case manager for all of our clients. So I assign examiners to each client, and I follow up with all the cases, and the examiners all report to me, and I make sure that everything is flowing smoothly and on time. Yes. Sometimes we do have little hiccups, but we try to keep things on task for sure. Well, I really like that I see cases all the way through. So I speak to the client in the beginning, and I feel like I form a relationship, and I'm following through with everything that the examiner is doing at different stages, and I even read all final reports. So I think it's very satisfying that I can see. I speak to the client in the beginning, and it's usually it can be a tense situation for the client, and then we follow it through, and I get to see all of the outcomes. And yeah, I would say that that's the most satisfying part of my job. I've seen clients in the beginning who, you know, they're very worried and very concerned, and there's been so many different types of situations. Sometimes the suspect is still in the office and they're working around the suspect. They can be very tense situations. That one that had the gun at the front desk. And typically most clients, when they suspect that they're being embezzled from, we'll get in there quickly and we'll get the evidence that we need, and then we'll assist with suspension, termination. But we had one client in particular who wanted to not go that route. They did not want to suspend or terminate the suspects until after our examination was complete. That dentist really had the desire to see her be removed from the office in handcuffs, and we made that happen. And it took a few weeks, and that dentist had nerves of steel, but it happened. Don't take anything for granted, and just kind of pay attention to any social cues that are going on.
Thank you, Wendy. She is so important here and so vital to what we do and keeping what we do professional, and we're just profoundly grateful that she's here.
One of the things I love the most about working at Prosperident is being able to forge very intimate relationships with my clients. If you can imagine, when they first come to Prosperident, they feel so vulnerable and they're confused and they don't know what might happen in the future. You know, as my friend Pat said in the beginning, you know, is this a trusted team member, you know, that deserves to be, I deserve to be suspicious of that person? Or is this a trusted team member and I'm wrong for being suspicious of them? One of my clients that I worked with years ago is Dr. Kurt Specht from California. And his case was quite difficult. And it took us about a year to unravel the mess that his suspect had caused in his practice database, the software database. And Dr. Speck's insurance company was absolutely the hardest insurance company I have ever fought with to get restitution for a victim. But Dr. Speck was kind the entire time. We worked together really well as a team, and through that, we forged a great relationship. So shout out to my friends at Central Coast Orthodontics. Appreciate you watching today. And here's Dr. Kurt Speck.
I know David's given the numbers of how many people have been embezzled once and embezzled twice and 3 times and so on. I'm a bit embarrassed to say I've been one of those that's embezzled twice. Some of our people left, and we had some pretty good people come on board. And so now she had people that she hadn't, she didn't know if she could trust or not. And some of them were involved in the front office, and so she didn't have full reign anymore. And so I think that kind of made her nervous. She knew people could see stuff. And so she actually, she went out on sick leave. And so at that point, it became apparent that definitely things were going on. It's a challenging thing. I mean, on one hand, even if you are suspicious, nobody wants to admit that they haven't been competent in running their own business. A number of people that would rather just not know. She was a basket case. She was crying and just, first denying it and then just like, I'm so sorry. And anyway, and she was worried, I think, what was going to happen. But she did go back and work in a dental office, which I think is an important thing to realize that, my take on this is that what you guys are doing is fantastic. And I think if more people would set their fears aside and get their practices checked out, even if they're not, even if they don't, I mean, what do you have to lose? You don't have anything. They're really, other than you guys, nobody's putting a stop to this that I know of. Mm-hmm. So that's, I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to say something is it would be nice if we could, if this could stop. I think so many of us are so caught up in the stuff we're doing that we need people that are pros at this almost occasionally look, I think a 1-year forensic audit of your practice would, I would go for that. I think most of us kind of know we should have better checks and balances than we have, but it's just, you're always so busy, you're several projects behind, and it's just something you're gonna do sometime.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman who consults to a lot of dental practices who talks about a concept called the tyranny of the urgent. And really what he's talking about is, you have things that really scream for your attention right now, like the phone ringing or a patient needing some kind of emergency treatment. And then you've got things that could be done today and could be done tomorrow and could be done the next day. And the fact that something is not urgent doesn't always mean that it's not important. It just isn't screaming for your attention. And I think that's really what Kirk was speaking to there.
Well, I'd like everyone to meet my dear friend and one of my biggest mentors I've had during my time here at Prosperident, Debbie Long. She is our OCD meets practical. Her husband is a dentist, and she comes from a business background, an accounting background, and she's from Tennessee. She's very practical as we gave her the title, but she's so detail oriented and has really shown me a lot of different ways to look at details and break things down efficiently. So I want you all to meet my great friend, Debbie.
Yes, that would be Office Protection System. And we go look at 25 hotspots within your practice. The practice owner has expressed an interest to want to be better within their own practice, with their staff, with their data, with their practice management software, and somehow cohesively bring that all together. Oh, absolutely. They're like a test site. It helps to have a good structure, a good foundation, documentation, know what your staff does for you, working with these robust practice management softwares. They are so beautiful. So I encourage all practice owners to go to your experts, go to your practice management software experts and get to be fluent with those systems better than your staff would be working for you in your practice. When I deliver the report to a practice owner, we schedule a call, and it's typically 2 hours, usually more. And what I want them to do when they have read the report and they get more clarity from that conversation is they start implementing some of my recommendations and following my advice. I want to hear them say, "This is great. This keeps me on track." I hear that from about 85% of the cases that I have done. The 15%, what do I hear? I hear, "You're really picky, and picky is great." I hear, "This is really intense. This is something we've never done before." And I say to a practice owner, those are the people that we want to watch. Okay, I need to think some more. Yes, that's a great question.
So Debbie heads our department that does something that's a little bit different than what the rest of us do. Most of us are involved in investigating when embezzlement is suspected or confirmed, but Debbie and Amber, who works with her, help offices put systems in place that protect them. And it's a very important part of what we do. Yes. These are the cave dwellers. One of the things that Prosperident is very dependent on is computers, and we have racks and racks of them, and they look like the one there that we're cutting a ribbon on a few years ago. So we have a couple of people who are going to go on camera here, and most of us probably know that IT people can be a little bit shy, but these guys are maybe a little more outgoing than most. So I'm going to introduce you to Jacob Hiltz, who goes by Jake, and he's our Chief Information Officer. So he's the guy who oversees our hardware, our software, all of the various systems we use, and there are a lot of them. And I'm also going to introduce you to Seamus Leonard, and Seamus is a data acquisition specialist. So his job is to help practices copy the data that we use for investigations. And these guys will touch on it, but I'll just mention it before they start. Only in very rare cases do we ever connect into the live data that's in your practice. Most of the time we create what's called a forensic duplicate. So that's where we get your data and then we build a working copy of whatever it is that you're using. And we do that for several reasons. One is that we want our process to be not detectable to your staff. And you heard Dr. Pat Little emphasizing that earlier on. And also, it's much easier for us to work with data that's not changing underneath us while we're trying to look at it. So we create these things called forensic duplicates. They're created in our secure computer facility, and that's what our examiners, and Amber showed you that they live all over the continent. That's what our examiners plug into when they're doing your work. So let's hear from the cave dwellers.
Yeah, we've got a server rack here in Halifax, not too far from where I live actually, and that's where we keep all of our stuff.
Right, and Just so the audience will know, you won't tell me where it is.
I'm not sure if it was the first time I deleted all of the files, or I think it was the second time. Well, the first time I feel like it was a little bit more lenient, but the second time, yeah. But we ended up getting it back, so that was okay. It was just a short bit of downtime.
Privacy is definitely one of our main things that we're after here. Okay. So instead of connecting directly to the server to do the investigation, we typically schedule a data upload where we will take the backup files of the practice software, and then we will create a forensic duplicate in our lab. And this way, our investigators can be covert about their investigation, and they won't need to be connected to the actual client's server during the investigation, so it's completely private.
Yeah, a lot of the, well, first of all, you can't change anything after we have the duplicate. So a lot of times we have people who are worried about that, you know, a suspect maybe coming in and changing records or deleting records. So that's something you avoid doing it that way as well.
Yeah, another benefit to having a forensic duplicate is that the data set that they're working with is not changing whatsoever. So the numbers are solid, and it's a lot easier to undergo the investigation.
Cover all software. That's ortho, pedo, regular general dentistry. I don't think there is a software that we don't cover. Yep, we have Mac systems dedicated for that purpose. So that's how we handle those Mac clients. There's certainly some challenges with cloud, depending on the software, but again, you know, we've been able to cover all software, cloud or not, so it doesn't prevent us from doing our work.
I think dealing with some of the clients is actually a bit of fun. You know, sometimes we have some prolonged conversations that can last up to half an hour, 45 minutes long. It's interesting to hear their take on things and their stories and exactly what's going on in their practices.
A lot, yeah, quite a bit, actually. Okay. I was thinking about that earlier today, coming up with questions for this. Seamus, why don't you try this one, and I'll see if I can come up with something while you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the IT guy's definition of a long phone call. It's half an hour or 40 minutes.
Oh, those IT guys. They're so much fun. This is my friend Tony, who lives in Georgia. Now, Tony is a little bit different than other investigators at Prosperident. Tony handles those really special, very, very difficult cases, and he has a brilliant accounting brain. And every time I try to talk to Tony, I learned so much about accounting and different things that he's always got a wealth of knowledge. But Tony does handle the more difficult cases, and so he's going to tell us about one now.
Tend to deal with accounting records, oftentimes maybe concerns about the employee doing the accounting, or even concerns about a business partner, you know, a fellow dentist. And quite often litigation is either a component, either actively or potentially, or the falsification of accounting records in helping an attorney be able to provide the best legal advice. Every case is very different. And so not only are you navigating a sea of records of varying qualities, but you're navigating a sea of personalities and motivations and concerns and passions, and it makes for something that is absolutely never dull and it really keeps you on your feet. Just kind of understanding what exactly has been happening across all of these years and all of these records, and is there any common lines we can draw between seemingly unrelated accounting records. It unfolded like a made-for-TV drama. It was a dentist in Texas, extremely nice man, a good, honorable man, who had hired a longtime friend who happened to have a lot of experience being an office manager. And this was actually the ex-wife of another good friend of his. And he hired his friend. She came in as the office manager to kind of help, quote unquote, turn things around or clean things up. There was a bit of a charge there to make things better. And what she did and she was there for maybe a year and a half, was she executed several types of expense side embezzlement schemes, meaning she was misappropriating money through her handling of the practice's expenses. She actually stole the dentist's identity on top of the other schemes she was doing, and apparently she had done this before. She was a serial embezzler, and the ultimate point to her scheme was it wasn't the complexity with how she was hiding the embezzlement, it was that she was using extramarital affairs as leverage, so when she got caught, she could just kind of say, hey, if you stay quiet, I will stay quiet. During the investigation, his friend, who was the office manager, suspect, embezzler's ex-husband, tragically perished in an airplane accident. Finally, it took 2 years, got great help, and we were able to put her in jail. She actually ultimately pled guilty. It's a great challenge. It is something I enjoy thoroughly.
I'd like to introduce you to one of our newest team members with Prosperident, Melinda Rutledge. We call her the Whiz Kid. She has been involved in dentistry for many years and has even co-owned some dental practices. She is located in Idaho, and she has been a great asset to our team.
I joined Prosperident fairly recently. I just love the dental industry and the business of dentistry. I fell in love with it when I actually co-owned several practices. I have a soft spot in my heart for dentists, and I love that Prosperident focuses completely on dental practices. And it breaks my heart that so many dentists are being taken advantage of. And I love that I can help put a stop to that. So I've worked, in and alongside dental offices for about 12 years, and I just love what I do. And I would say the most interesting part of my job is trying to get into the mind of the embezzlers. I'm just blown away every time, learning how they try to cover up what they do. And it amazes me. And I, again, love that we're putting a stop to it. I would say, if there's one thing that I try to convey to all of my clients, is the importance of implementing solid systems in your practice. I know everyone intends to have solid systems, but the whirlwind of the day sometimes doesn't allow that. But having diversified duties, checks and balances, and if there's something you can do today, if you can go and print off your practice management software deposit report and go to your bank statement and print off the last 2 weeks of your bank statement, the last 2 weeks of your practice management software, and compare them and see what you come up with. It's so important to balance your software with your bank statement on a regular basis. And we have tools to help you do that very easily that we are giving away for free, help you do that on a monthly and a daily basis. And you will feel more in control of your practice. You'll have peace of mind. So that is my encouragement today, is to go pull the last 2 weeks, see if you can balance it, and continue doing so. That's one system you can put in place today. I don't really have anything else.
He's so sweet. Oh, I get to introduce this group. So just for the benefit of the audience, we have 3 levels of examiner at Prosperident. At the top is supervising examiner, and Wendy Askins is one. Scott Clifford, who you're about to hear from, is another. We have senior fraud examiners, and Amber was promoted about a month ago, I think exactly a month and 45 minutes ago, to senior fraud examiner. And then we have fraud examiners who are either new people or who come from our analyst wings. The other group we have are analysts, and you met Haley a little while ago, the one who sort of took the big exhale when she was done. Haley's an analyst. Now we're going to meet a family of Prosperident people, and we think of ourselves as a family, and it's really, really cool when a family works for us. So the first person who started with us was Scott Clifford, and he went from fraud examiner to senior examiner to supervising examiner, and he's hands down one of the most capable people we have. His wife Rose started as an analyst, and she became an examiner and a senior examiner. And their daughter Mickey started with us when she was a freshman in high school, and I'll let her tell the story in a minute about how she got here. But she's become a very skilled team member, and she's pursuing higher education, and I think will be with us for a long, long time. The picture on your screen is a takedown of one of our embezzlers, and this happened about a month and a half ago. And you can see she's got the handcuffs on. The best part of this is one of Scott's cases. The best part of this story is that it was done at her attorney's office. She went to the attorney's office and she thought that she was going to be sued by our clients, but instead we had orchestrated that the police were ready, and they put this lady in cuffs. And Wendy and Amber have heard me say on occasion, my favorite sound in the world is the sound those handcuffs make when they click shut on an embezzler's wrist. So we're going to hear from the Clifford family. The video got a little bit messed up with this one, and as you can tell from various miscues here, we're kind of new at this part and we're still learning. So this one got a little bit messed up, and we've tried to do what we can with it. But it was originally Scott and Mickey and Rose all sitting together. Unfortunately, the video only captured Mickey in the middle, so it's not quite at the level of some of the other ones. Whoops, sorry guys, I hit the wrong button. Let's try that again.
I think for me, the most gratifying part about this position and what I do is that every doctor has a mystery in their practice. And part of our job when we're going in looking for embezzlement, we see the raw data. We see everything that's going on about the practice. And so there's questions that we can answer, sometimes questions that doctors have had for their entire practice lives. And when we get in there, and whether we find embezzlement or not, there is always, in every investigation, there's an aha moment for the doctor. And it might be, what does this audit trail entry mean? I see it all the time and I don't know what it means. Or, why is my AR doing this? So whether or not we find embezzlement, I'm always finding something that is answering a question that doctor may have had. And you can hear the relief in that doctor that's, oh my goodness, that's why something happened. And that moment to me in every investigation is by far the most gratifying moment. I love the people that I work with. David has assembled a team of not just the best people that I've ever met professionally, but the best people that I've ever met personally. These are just the most quality human beings on the planet, and it has just been my honor to be with Prosperident, and to have my family join the team just is icing on the cake.
One of the first things I started doing with Prosperident was document intake. It's especially hard for the doctors if they don't have access to their online banking, to their care credit, to merchant statements. One of the things I highly recommend is that they have the username and password. Just because the office manager is the one doing the work, they need to have the information. They need to have their finger on the pulse of that.
When I was a freshman in high school, my teacher was making us do resumes, and we had to do it to a specific company. So I did it to Prosperident. Both my parents work for them. So I made my resume, and then my dad said, send it to David. And so he sent it to David, and David offered to let me start doing some stuff here. It's been really fun doing a lot of stuff for Prosperident, and it's what I want to do for the rest of my life. I just graduated from high school in December, and I am planning on going to college for forensic accounting, and then I hope to be with Prosperident for many years to come after that.
One.
Oh, wait.
Mickey is, she's a Mensa level IQ, and I still remember the very expensive day that I had when I said, Mickey, I'll give you $10 for every mistake you find on our website. And man, did she ever give it a going over. Yeah, they're wonderful people, and we are so lucky to have them. Well, it's the chance to make me look a little silly, Amber. You're on.
Now the tables have turned. We've got to know our other great family at Prosperident, but now you're in the hot seat, Dave. So here's 7 fun questions for our CEO. Question number 1, is that your real hair? Is it?
Definitely. Kind of hard to get it cut now, and I kind of did the do-it-yourself thing, but yeah, it's real.
All right. What were you like as a kid? We want to know a little bit about your background.
I was the biggest dork you ever met. And if you look at the picture, you can probably see it.
What song describes your
I had a really basic choice. Green or orange. That's green there.
Green.
Or orange is what you wear in prison. I got in some trouble, and yeah, ended up having to make a choice, and thankfully I made the right one.
Yeah, we're thankful that you did too. So Dave, and when we started this, you said you founded this by an accident. Can you give us a background of how this happened?
Sure can. It was 1989, and I had moved away from Halifax, where I grew up, and I one day decided I should move back here. So I quit my job. I was doing investigations with a bank at that point, and I moved back to Halifax, and I was kind of sitting there enjoying the summer and trying hard not to think about what I was going to do next. And I got a call from a guy who I'd been in high school with, who is now a dentist. And he said to me, David, I think my front desk person's stealing from me, and I don't have anyone else to call. And he caught me at exactly the right time. I mean, it was middle of August. There was nothing good on TV, and in 1989, you didn't have Netflix or PVRs or any of the COVID relief things that you have now. So I said, sure, I'll come over tonight after you close your practice, and we'll get to the bottom of it. And I went to his practice. This is before office computerized, so it was the old pegboard system that people used to use, and found what she was doing, and didn't think much of it until 2 weeks later when I went into my own dentist's office, and I was about to go through the front door, and I saw sitting at his front desk the same woman that we fired at the other practice. And I called my dentist and told him about the time bomb ticking away, and he hired me. And you know, all those things they tell you to do in business school when you're going to start a business, you know, you need a business plan, you need financing, you need a marketing plan. I had none of that stuff. I just suddenly found myself in business, and you know, happy how it worked out.
Great story. So outside of all your fun with Prosperident and all of your time you spend with us, what do you like to do for fun for yourself?
I like to do a lot of things. A lot of my friends come from dentistry. Here are two of my good friends who are both great dental consultants. Kristen Pelletier is on your left, my right in the picture, and she's a consultant in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And the other person here is Jennifer Schultz, who's just an amazing lady from Dubuque, Iowa, and you know, we live far apart, but we love to get together. I have a lot of dental friends. I love outdoor stuff. There's me in my kayak. And Wendy, you were there that day. We all went out in kayaks once, and yeah, it was great fun. This is my little dog, whose name is Duke, and Duke loves to go outside and hike in the woods. And a lot of weekends, that's what he and I do. And here we were last fall. Yeah, he just sees me putting on the hiking boots, and the tail goes, and he's a great companion. And then there's the care and feeding of my giant son Ethan. Here we are the summer before last, and that's at the border between North Korea and South Korea. Ethan is a world traveler. He's a senior in high school this year. He's about to graduate. I don't quite know how they're going to handle that, but he's about to graduate and start college in the fall. But he loves to travel, and he's been to Europe a bunch of times, in South America, and here we are, as I say, right on Kim Jong-il's doorstep.
Are you really a COVID survivor, and can you share that experience?
I absolutely am. In February and March, I traveled a lot. I got home here on March 12th. I was sitting at the desk in my office right where I am now. I'd had a little bit of a cough for a few days, but I didn't think a whole lot of it. And I felt my temperature go up, and I said, that doesn't usually happen when I get my winter cough. So I kind of looked online at the symptoms, and I saw that I lined up pretty well with them. So I called the public health people here, and they heard about my symptoms and then my travel history, because I crossed the continent 3 times. In fact, Kurt Specht, one of the client speakers that we had, was in my audience at one of those speaking engagements. And anyway, the public health people said, yeah, we should test you. So it all happened really quickly. I was tested an hour later, and 24 hours after that, I got the call that I was the first person to test positive in Nova Scotia. So did a little bit of isolation, and 2 weeks later I went and got retested and was clear of the virus. So I should have immunity now, which means I never plan to wash my hands again. For me, Amber, it was really mild, and I know that that's not everybody's experience, but I never even felt sick enough to want to stay home from work. You know, it was like the mildest case of the flu, and I just wish that would be what happened to everybody, and sadly it's not. All right, I guess you get one more question.
One more question. So Dave, the worst moment in your life involved dental implants? How does that happen?
Oh goodness. Well, a friend of mine was getting pretty much a full mouth reconstruction. After her final appointment at the periodontist, she and I were meeting for lunch. So I got there first, and I was sitting down in the restaurant. And then my friend came in the door a few minutes later, and she got through the door and she saw me, and she flashed a big smile to show off her new teeth. And what came out of my mouth, and this is the thing I was trying really hard to put back in, was what I said, and it came out a little louder than it should have. Wow, the implants look amazing. Well, she knew what I meant, but in the meantime, every male in the room just about got whiplash when they were kind of doing this to get a better look. So after that, Amber, what the takeaway from this is, whenever we're talking about those kind of implants, we should put the word dental in front of it, and it will just save us all kinds of trouble. So yeah, that was probably the most embarrassing moment in my life. And
yeah, definitely.
All the periodontists in the audience, you caused it.
Great. All right.
This is my friend, Dr. Craig Scott. And, you know, as I travel around the United States, meeting our clients or former clients or doing speaking engagements, inevitably I always hear the same thing, and that is, it could never happen to me. Well, Dr. Scott and his business partner believe that that was true about their practice as well. They're both excellent businessmen, brilliant orthodontist, but it did happen to them. And I want to share one other thing about what's really special about Dr. Scott sharing his story with us today. I want to echo the sentiments that Dave and Amber have said about how much I admire our clients that were willing to be videoed and to share their story with you. You know, we deal with this type of stuff every day. But we all understand that for our clients, it's a devastating thing for them. And it's very hard to talk about it. And so I just have so much appreciation and so much love for our clients who have come out and shared their stories with us, especially Dr. Scott. Now, Dr. Scott and I worked together at the beginning of this year, and his case is in active prosecution right now. So he had to be extremely careful with what he shared with us because he wanted to make sure that nothing could come back on him and hurt their case against their suspect. Anyway, so I just want to say thank you again, Dr. Scott, for bearing your heart and for sharing with us and for telling everybody your story. So this is Dr. Craig Scott.
For a period of time, even before all of this came up with her, it seemed for me for the last 2 or 3 years, we were always just getting by. Everybody was getting paid. We didn't have to cut hours. We didn't have to not pay people. But there was never any extra money. Well, fast forward probably a couple of years, and one of my employees approaches me and says, you know what, I was looking at some stuff, Dr. Scott, and I noticed this patient that we started doesn't have a contract entered, and I know I posted the down payment. So I go back, I say, you know what, that patient we talked about, I went back to our financial coordinator, that patient we talked about, do you have a deposit slip for that? He said, yeah. I said, okay. Because I'm thinking, she's not going to lie to me. This employee who initially approached me says, so what did you find out? And I said, yeah, she said she's got a deposit slip. And then this employee looked at me, kind of cocked her head, kind of like this, and said, did you look at it? I thought I'd do some investigating on my own. So I started looking at our audit trail in our practice management software. This transaction had been voided. And so I said, all right, so that's about when things started to sink in. Okay, there's something going on, and I don't know there's a good answer for this. This is beyond a small discrepancy, and there's something definitely going on here. They gave me Prosperident. So I thought, and this is a Friday afternoon. So being OCD like I am, I didn't want to wait till Monday, so I talked to David probably for 45 minutes or an hour. I explained everything to him, and he said, yeah, there's probably something going on there that we need to look into. And he explained to me how the process works, what to expect, what they need from me. But, and then if there is embezzlement, how the prosecution works, whether it goes to a judge for restitution or goes to court. He laid out all these scenarios to start the whole process. And sure enough, after the investigation, it was found that we had been embezzled for a significant amount. And then we just kind of went through all that. Nothing was unknown to me because he told me, if this happens, here's what we're going to do. Where the local police department took the case on, but then I think the Secret Service requested the case because my understanding is once it gets to a certain amount of embezzlement. But I remember sitting in the meeting thinking, this is really great information for someone who might actually need it.
Wow, he's such a good, articulate man, Wendy. What a good guy he is, and you know, we're pleased to have him as a friend and a client.
Yeah, and that his entire interview,
Yeah.
there will be a link to his entire interview, and it's really fascinating how he just bears his heart. So.
Yeah, cutting that one down to fit within our time here was a real challenge. He just said so much that was so informative and so useful. So I encourage the audience to go back and take a look at the full length of the interview, which is about 12 minutes. You know, it's not like it's a 2-hour kind of thing. So we'll just say a few small things in closing, and then I see that there are some questions, so we'll try to get to some of those, and then we'll thank everybody and get ready for next week. Whoops, don't forget to vote. Yeah, you don't get to do that for a little while. We haven't asked you for anything in the webinars that we've done. There is one thing that we would like to ask. If you are enjoying our content, we would love it if you would leave a 5-star review for us on Google. And the end of session message that's due to come out in about 24 minutes will have a link that will take you right to the page on Google where you can leave a review. So if you've had a good time with us, if you've learned some things, we'd love if you'd share that information with others. In the background is a mock-up of the book that I wrote, which is called Dental Embezzlement, The Art of Theft and the Science of Control. And a lot of the topics that we have touched on in the webinars have been developed in a lot more detail in the book. So if you've been interested in what we've talked about, it's a good read. It's only 115 pages, so it's not like it's going to take you hours and hours. And the other thing that I'll mention is that we have agreed that all of our royalties, book sales for the month of April will be donated to help people with food insecurity that comes from COVID. So if you're going to get the book anyway, as long as you get it by the end of the month, you will be helping some needy people, and we'd really appreciate that. And next week is going to be the grand finale. It will be the last webinar that we're going to do until July. We've really had fun doing this. It's been great. You know, my colleagues and I have pretty frequent meetings, and we've had a lot of fun. It's also a lot of work, and we know that for many of you, your attention right now is starting to turn towards getting your practices back up and running. So we're gonna take a break from this. We're planning on being back in July, and we have some topics in mind already for July. So we'll be sending you all out an announcement when we finalize our plans and we're able to get back to it. We'd like to keep doing this probably somewhere between once a month and once every 2 months. The only thing I'll mention is that it's a tremendous amount of work to put these together. And this week, and you saw the little miscues we had in the videos and the spelling mistakes and stuff, but even with all that, you know, there's probably 40 to 50 hours of our time in putting that stuff together. So it's not something we can do every week, no matter what, but we are, you know, we've been really happy with the audience response, and we are planning on continuing. So those are our closing thoughts for today. You will get a message. There's a bonus item as well today. What we've included today is what we sometimes colloquially call the immediate action checklist. And this is a checklist for if you wake up one morning and you realize that there's a good possibility somebody's stealing from you. You know, what should I do and what shouldn't I do? And it's topical for me today because I was talking with a practice this morning, and you know, they called me sort of midway into their action sequence, and I really disagreed with a lot of the things that they had done so far. So the immediate action checklist is probably as much as anything designed to stop you from making missteps when you get to the point where you suspect embezzlement. So there's a link on that end of session email. You can click on it. You can have the checklist, which is something that we normally sell on our website for nothing. So with that, why don't we turn to the questions, and let's see what people have. I'll just put up the how to reach us slide. You can see some people there, and you actually got to meet a fair number of them today. We did pretty well at that. Let's collectively take a look at the questions, Wendy and Amber, and
okay. Dave, there are a lot. Oh, I'm sorry, Amber. There are a lot of questions about the security that we take in data transfer and HIPAA compliance. Absolutely,
and that's something that we are obsessive with. You know, when you turn your information over to us, if there ever was a breach that came from that, we would have a big problem, and so would you. And we've spent a lot of time perfecting our process. First of all, for HIPAA purposes, we give you very quickly in the process what's called a business associate agreement, and that's the agreement between you and us that creates the environment where under HIPAA you're allowed to share the information with us, provided that we use it for some narrow purposes. You met Jake, the head of our IT department. I guess what I'll say generally about information security is that your stuff is about 20 times as secure in our computers as it probably is in yours. You saw what I said to Jake. I mean, I literally have never been to our computer building, ever. I know roughly where it is. I couldn't find it on a map. Why? Because I have no valid business need to be there. So we're really, really obsessive about that. We have never had an information breach in 30 years, for which I thank both the Heavenly Father and Jake Hiltz, and we go to extreme lengths to make sure that I don't ever have to issue a qualifier to that statement.
Dave, what are the red flags that a dentist or other team members should be looking for when they may be suspicious of a potential embezzler?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. And we did a session 2 weeks ago on embezzlement, and we talked a fair amount about the red flags there. So I'd encourage the questioner and anybody else who has a similar question to go back to that stuff. Just a reminder that all the webinars that we've done are available on our website. There's a section, there's a menu item on our top menu called In the News, and there's a sub-menu called Prosperident Power Hour, and they're all there. That's also where we put the interviews with those 3 doctors who were on camera for us today, where we put the full interviews. And today's session will be there. We say by Friday, but most times we have it available the day after. So those, the resources there. What we talked about a lot in that session was the way that thieves are acting, because that's one of the most reliable telltales, and it's also the most observable. So people who are embezzling act in certain ways. For example, they get very territorial, very possessive about their duties and even their workspace. They will possibly be reluctant to take vacation. They may try to work their schedules so that they're in the practice when nobody else is. These are the kinds of things, and I'm not going to go through them all because I'd encourage people to go and look back at what we said 2 weeks ago, but fantastic question. I see one I'll take, which is, does business insurance cover embezzlement claims? Most of you have business insurance So we're talking here about the stuff that covers like fires and floods and things like that. And that insurance has some amount of coverage for what's called employee dishonesty. And the number we see most commonly is $25,000 of coverage. We see a few dentists who have only 10,000 of coverage. We see some who have more. I was talking to somebody this morning who has 100,000 of coverage, which personally is what I think would be a good amount given what we see stolen. But you all have some level of insurance coverage, and if you've been stolen from, that's the relatively easy money to get. You know, getting beyond that is a little more challenging, and sometimes we have good success with that.
Dave, what would you say the percentage of cases of confirmed embezzlement that are prosecuted by law enforcement?
I'm going to assume that the question is asking about our case files. Outside of our company, the number is really low. And the reason it's low is simple. This is a very technical crime. You know, if you have a police department trying to do what we call primary investigation of this crime, it's never going to be prosecuted. They simply do not have the resources or the expertise to understand enough about dentistry in the way that we do to be able to put together a case. So when we're involved, we perform what I think of as primary investigation. So our job is to see what happened and provide a report on it. And that report is normally the raw materials that police or the prosecution agencies use to do their work. What police will then do is what I call secondary investigation. In other words, they will take some steps that we as private investigators cannot. For example, we cannot compel somebody to produce their banking records, but the police can get a search warrant and force a bank to, without even informing the bank's client, to hand over those things. So a lot of times we will involve the police at the right stage where they can add some value. But you know, as primary investigators, it's hopeless to involve them. I mean, they just cannot do it. And when you look at what people like Wendy and Amber must know to be good at their jobs, you know, that's kind of specific to dentistry. And both the ladies with me today have spent pretty much their entire adult lives in dentistry. You know, there's just no way that somebody who was investigating family violence 2 weeks ago can ever get there. I'll maybe take that top question, Amber. This says, do you think that you may develop a software plugin to help the dentist keep an eye on their daily activities easily? It's an interesting problem, and it's one we've thought about a lot. You know, the question is there such a thing as software that will detect embezzlement in a practice? You know, stuff that can run live and sort of monitor transactions. The technical problems with that are incredibly challenging. You know, and the problem when you look only at practice management software. So I'm going to throw out a name. Let's say you're using Dentrix. If you develop a piece of software that tries to look at Dentrix and decide whether transactions are fraudulent or not, and only refer to Dentrix, there are going to be a lot of false positives. There's going to be stuff that's done for a legitimate reason, and the software that you've come up with just has no way to triage that from stuff that's done for other than a legitimate reason. So people have tried that. You know, there have been several attempts at it, and it just doesn't work. To me, for software like that to be effective, what it needs to be able to do is it needs to be able to look at kind of 3 legs of a triangle simultaneously. The practice management software is part of it. Part of it is the practice's bank account, and part of it is insurance companies. If you can line those 3 up with a piece of software, then you can have a pretty good shot at finding stuff that doesn't make sense. The problem is there are thousands of banks, there are hundreds of insurance companies, and you know, when you multiply the number of banks by the number of insurance companies, you get a lot of permutations. And I don't think anybody so far has worked out a good approach to being able to handle all the different combinations with software. I mean, a lot of these guys have some kind of API. API really meaning you know, an ability to plug some other piece of software. So you know, when you use the banking app on your phone, you're using an API to that bank system. So those things exist, but it's a monumental job, and I don't see it anytime soon. Sorry, that was a long answer, but it was such a good question.
Yeah. Dave, Melinda mentioned free tools for dentists and practice owners to use to balance their bank deposits to their dental software. Is that accessible on the website?
It isn't, and that was a giveaway that we did in our first 2 sessions. If you missed those sessions and you want it, just email me at the email address that's on your screen right now, and just mention our monthly monitoring spreadsheet, and I'll be happy to send it to you. Now, this requires some input from the doctor. You know, this is not a magical piece of software that does something for you, but it will make the process a lot easier, and it'll do all the computations for you. So yeah, if you didn't get it in our first 2 sessions and you want it, just email me and mention monthly monitoring spreadsheet, and I'll be happy to make sure you get it. I see a question asking about Christine Geary, who was one of the people who was on our video. And did she provide Dentrix training to dental practices in California about 10 to 15 years ago? Yes, she did. She was a Dentrix trainer for a long time. In fact, I think 1 year she was Dentrix's trainer of the year, which is a pretty significant accomplishment. And the way Christine found us, you know, people find us in weird ways. It was mentioned in the piece that Christine is doing her degree in forensic accounting. Well, she called me one day for a little bit of help with a homework assignment. And you know, I'd never met her, but I talked to her for a while, and she made a really good impression. And you know, I kind of filed away in my mind that maybe when she finished her program or something, that, you know, we'd like to talk. Anyway, we had a pretty steady influx of new clients, and all of our investigators kind of got up to capacity. And so I reached out to Christine, and we ended up hiring her a bit early, and it was a great decision. She's been fantastic. So yes, she is the person you remember. Oh, and the person who asked the question said something really nice. I loved her. She helped my nonprofit community oral health services clinic. I would love to connect with her to say hi. Thank you for the great feedback. She is on our website, I think, and you should be able to contact her through there. But if not, if you look at Amber's email address on your screen, that's the pattern. So it will be christine.geary@dentalembezzlement.com. So yes, I'm sure she'd be happy to hear from you.
Great.
Looks like we got them all, gang.
Yeah.
I would love to thank our audience again. We've had great people and great participation. Next week's going to be really cool. We're going to teach something they do not teach in dental school. Really, how to make sure that your practice is reconciled. And I'll take 1 second and talk about the significance of this. Here's how embezzlers think. And I don't think I've ever said this publicly before, so we're continuing our theme of peeling back the curtain today. What embezzlers do in a practice is they start by asking a really simple question. And that question is, does the reconciliation process, and what we're talking about by reconciliation, just so everybody's in the loop, is we're talking about making sure that your practice management software matches outside information like bank account, your merchant account, which is from the machine in your practice that takes credit card payments. And if you work with somebody like Care Credit or Lending Club or Green Sky, you know, do patient financing, that those things line up. So we kind of define 2 processes: balancing, which is the activity that your staff do, and then reconciliation, which is your oversight of balance. If there is no oversight, then what that means is somebody can steal and they don't need to try to hide it by playing with individual patient accounts in your practice management software. So if reconciliation is not being done in your practice, you're making it easy, and that means you will be stolen from by people who are lazy, stupid, or blessed with both attributes. The significance of reconciliation is that it catches those people, and it really limits embezzlement to people who are a lot smarter. So it's kind of picking up the low-hanging fruit, I would say. And that's why it's important. So next week, we're going to teach you how to do it. We're going to show you how to do it in a way that doesn't take hours and hours, that's quick and effective. And like I say, we'll screen out all the lazy and or stupid thieves. Amber, Wendy, anything we want to add to that explanation?
No, I think that's a wonderful assessment. I mean, just reconciliation catches that low-hanging fruit that, I mean, it's easy to spot.
It is, and when we do investigation, that's the first thing we do.
Right.
On most files, we start by reconciling. Even if the doctor says, yeah, you know, I do that every day, and I do proper month ends, and we still do it. And it has caught a heck of a lot of thieves at Prosperident. So we're going to show you. Ladies and gentlemen, please have a great week and a safe week. And I hope that in some places you're kind of getting ready to get back to work, because that will be a happy day for all of you. Thank you very much for joining us again today. Amber and Wendy, thank you. I really love the time that we've gotten to spend together in doing this, and I'm going to miss that part when we go on hiatus.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week.
Bye. Thanks.